Hi everyone, my name is Mark Moikins from Big Mountain Studio. If you're interested in iOS development, then subscribe and click on that bell icon so you can get notified when I come out with new iOS tutorials. So, have you ever had to sort an array of objects, like classes or structs? Have you ever had to compare two objects to determine if they're the same or not? If you have to do this, then this video is for you, because when you're finished with this video, you'll not only know how to sort complex objects, like an array of objects, but you'll also know how to compare objects for equality to see if they're equal or not. This is what you'll have to know to be able to sort our list of days and insert new days into the correct position in our table view when we add new days. Okay, so one thing we have to handle is making sure that when we add days, they are correctly sorted. Because right now they're not. You can add them in different orders like you see in this screenshot. We want it so our user can add days in any order they want, but the days will always be sorted in ascending order. So let's go into our project and handle that. Now, one of the things that we want to do is when we add a new day, we want to be able to sort that array of days in ascending order. And we want to sort it by date. So where do we do that? Well, down here is where we add new days. So we create the days here. So we could add it here, like in the create days. I hold down Command, I right click on there, and maybe we could sort it here, like add it to the trip models and then sort it. But remember, there's another place where we get days from too, and that's from our mock data. So maybe what we'll do is we'll just observe, we'll add a property observer to the day models here. So I'm going to hold down Command and go into day models here. And you see the trip model has a property called day models right here. So what we can do with properties is we can add observers to them. Observers that say, oh, when a new value is being assigned, run this code first. Or before the value is assigned to the property, run this code. And we do that by using the didSet keyword. Okay, now this gets called after the value has been assigned to day models. All right. There is another observer called willSet, which gets called before the value is set. But I want to run this code after the value is set. So after a new day model is added, I want to sort it then. So the question is, how do we sort arrays? Well, let's take a look. Swift has a function for arrays called sorted. With that function, we can define how we want this array of objects to be sorted, because it won't know. Now, if you had an array of just numbers, it would be easy for it to sort, because it knows how to sort numbers and it knows how to sort letters, but it doesn't know how to sort a day model with other day models in an array. So we're going to have to tell it. Because our object, like structs or classes, have properties, we have to tell it sort by the ID, or sort by the title, or sort by subtitle. So let's see how that's done in code. Okay, so day models is the array that we want to sort. So we'll say day models. And when you call sorted by, it returns an array. So we're going to reassign day models with a sorted array. And right here, sorted by. So that's the one we want to use. Let's create some space for ourselves here. Okay, so what is this? Day model, day model. Well, the way sorting works is it compares two objects in your array. And it says, which one do you want to be greater than the other? So the day model, those are the two parameters that are passed in. And of course, they have the same name, so we're going to have to give them a different name. We'll say like day model 1, and let's just keep the capitalization consistent here. And this one we'll call day model 2. And then we'll tell it what is true, what condition is true. So we'll say, well, day model 1, we want to compare by the title, which is the date. And remember, we want to sort by ascending order. So we'll say when this date is less than the day model 2's date, day model 2 title, then it's true. And this will sort it in ascending order. So let's try that and see if it works. Okay, one date. Then we'll add an earlier date, like the 11th. Okay, this is really strange, right? It added January 13th twice into the table which brings us to our next problem, which is when we insert new days, we also have to insert them into the table view in the right order. And that's not happening now, but we will fix it. But for now, we can just come back, and if we go back into Mexico, it should show the correct dates. And so this is sorted. So let's add another one that comes afterwards. Okay, and just to make sure it's working correctly, we come back, and all the dates look sorted correctly. All right, so that's good. So there's another thing I want to show you with this sorted function here. And it's basically different ways on how it can be optimized, like using kind of like a shorthand. So let me show you a different way that it can also be done. Daymodels.sort. We're using the same function, except this time, let's do it a little bit differently. So here's my code block. And, I'm not passing in the day model 1 or the day model 2, but I can still reference them using a shortcut, or a shorthand rather, which is a $0. And $0 represents the first argument that's being passed in. So $0 equals day model 1 in the above code. And from here, I can reference title, and I can say less than, and then to access the second parameter, I can say $1. And that represents the day model 2. There. And this will work just fine. So these two functions are equivalent. So what we can do is we can just comment this out, and we can test that function just to make sure it's still working the same way. And we have to go back in, and there it is. It's sorted and everything is fine. So we know that's working too. Now there's one more way that I want to show you that can make this easier for you, and then you can use your own judgment in your own project as far as which sorting method will work best for you. Now here, we're sorting outside of the day model, but you can actually put that logic right inside the day model. So this way, the day model knows how to sort itself in the future. And let me show you how that works. So we'll go into the day model here. I'll just command right-click onto day model right there. And the way you do it is you have to have your structure or your class implement another protocol called comparable. So what I'm going to do is I'll just create an extension so we can separate out the code with the protocol. With the comparable protocol, you can define how two objects can be compared. Do you want to compare them with the title, which is the date? Do you want to compare them by ID? Or do you want to compare them by a subtitle? Or you can also compare multiple properties. So maybe the dates are the same. So maybe the next thing you want to do is compare it by subtitle. Okay, it's giving me an error here saying I haven't implemented it. And do I want to add the protocol stubs? Yes, I do. Okay, as you can see, there's two of them that we have to implement here. And the way this works, you see an LHS and an RHS. That's short for left-hand side and the right-hand side. So you're comparing, remember those two properties that you saw when we were comparing? Yeah, let's just go back here real quick. You had day model 1 and day model 2. Well, this is the left-hand side, and that's the right-hand side. So we're basically going to do the same thing. We're going to say return left-hand side, and we want to look at the title, the date. And you see this right here. So what we're actually doing is we're implementing a function, which is the less than or the double equals, the comparing operators here. So we're saying it's true if this date is less than the right-hand side date. And we're going to do something similar with the equals equals. If the two dates are equal, then the two objects, the two day model objects, are equal. So that's what we're doing here. If we want to see if one day model is less than another day model, we're actually just going to compare the dates. You could do it on the IDs, and you could do it on the subtitles as well. Or you can do it on both. I could say if the dates are equal, then look at the subtitle. And whichever one has a subtitle, make that one first, or make it last. I could sort ascending by what's in the subtitle. but that's up to you and your object. Okay, now once we have this, let me just clean this up a little bit here. Once we have this, how do we actually use this when we're sorting? Let's go back to our trip model, and let me comment this out. And sure enough, it's going to be the same function, except now all we need to do is supply how are we going to compare it. Less than symbol, and that will be sorting ascending. I can sort in descending by using this, but we're going to sort in ascending manner. So let's test that and see how that works. Okay, there we go. So it sorted it perfectly because I added January 9th after I added January 13th, yet January 9th is on the top. All right, so everything is still working great. Now, we still have this bug, though. When we insert new items and new sections into our table view, it's inserting the wrong index. It's using the wrong index. And let's go back to that code and see what that looks like. Okay. And it happens on the done saving. And if you remember from 2 videos ago, what we had to do is we had to find out where the bottom of the list was, and that's where we're going to add our new day. Well, this logic is going to change now because we don't want to add it at the end of now, we might have to add it in the middle or add it to the top, depending on how it's sorted. So the first thing we have to do, we get the day model that was passed in. We have to find out where that day model is in the array. And once we find it in the array, we have to get which index it is. Is it in index 0? Is it in index 3, index 10? We don't know, but that's what we have to find out. So let's create some space here to do some work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out because we don't need that logic anymore. We still need to append the new day model to our local collection, our local array. And when we do that, when it reaches this property, it's going to sort automatically, and it's going to put this day model in a different position in the array, so it's sorted by date. Then after this is done, after it's all sorted and in our local array, because remember, this property is local, it's not in our data store, we want to get the index. So let's get the index. We'll go into the day models, and then from here in this collection, there's a function that we can use called first index of, right here. And this will return the index of the first matching day model. And we're going to be looking at the day model that was passed in. Okay, what's it complaining about? Oh yeah, so this property right here that we're passing in is supposed to be an array. So let's make this into an array. Oh, and if this doesn't find the day model, which it should, but it's going to give us a problem because first index can return a nil. And we'll just say if it returns a nil, just make it 0. Just use index 0. Okay, that should get rid of the errors. Now let's test it and find out what happens. Now that this date is before the 13th, it should be inserting in the top row. There we go. And it works fine. And if we add one to the end, it should add to the end. Now let's add January 12th, and it should insert between the 11th and the 13th. There we go. Okay, cool. So that works. And why does that work? How does it know that 2 day models equal the same? How does it know that this one was the one that matched maybe the second or the third? Well, it's because of what we added earlier. If we go back to the day model, we implemented this function right here. And this is how it knows that one day model equals the other. Now, if we want to be more exact, maybe we shouldn't compare the dates because we do have a unique identifier, which is this ID. So we could also compare the ID like this. And that will definitely tell us if it's the exact same one, because the chances of 2 IDs or 2 UUIDs here being the same is very, very slim. It should never happen. So this is a better way to compare if 2 things are equal to each other. So there you go, guys. That's how you can use the comparable protocol to see if 2 things are the same or to sort your objects. And again, you might have a class or you might have a structure and you want to sort them. But how do you sort it? What property do you sort it by? How do you know if one comes before the other? Well, you just define your own criteria. Now, I do want to say something else. If you didn't want to do sorting but you do want to be able to see if one object equals the same, then you don't have to use comparable. You can also use equatable. I'll just show you that real quick. Equatable like that. And then this, I think it just has you implement the equals equals. Let's see, fix. Yeah, equals equals. And as you can see, it's the exact same thing that we do right here. So that is another option if you're only interested in comparing if one object equals another one. You know, maybe if you're doing a search or something like that. Okay, so that's equatable. Let's get this guy back in there. Now, the reason why we can do this with just comparable and not equatable is because if you hold down Command and you go into comparable, you notice it inherits from equatable, or subclass is equatable. And if you look at these other operators that, you have less than, greater than, greater than or equal to, and so on. But there's no equal in here, right? Well, that's because it's inside of equatable. If we go in here and we go to equatable, it's right here, equals equals. So and that's what we implemented. Okay, guys, that's it for this video. You learned how to sort and compare classes or structs, depending on what you're using, by using the comparable protocol. And we use that in our project so we could sort our days. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share it with your friends, maybe post it on Twitter, subscribe. If you want to help out the channel, you can provide a translation for just the title and description in your native language so people who speak your language can find this video too. Thanks, and keep climbing that big mountain to be a great developer.